Welcome to a brand new college football episode of the Bold Take Podcast. I'm Austin Hill. With me, as always, is Austin Wader. We're back talking Week 12 action as we get ready to look ahead to Week 13 as well. And look, the next couple of weeks, if you're just kind of looking at the schedule, they're not going to be super huge and action packed. And even this weekend wasn't action packed, but we're going to have this is where we start having playoff games these next couple
Mm-hmm.
of weeks. Maybe we won't have the same magnitude where, there are a lot less teams involved in the college football playoff, a lot less teams involved for the conference titles. Um, so some teams, we start to maybe get a little less interested in some of the games, don't maybe
Yeah.
mean as much as we thought they were going to.
But Austin, let's cut to the chase though. We all know what next Saturday is going to be, ladies and gentlemen. Rivalry week, which let's just say
Yep.
like it is. It doesn't matter what the records are at that point. Throw them out the window. You're getting good football that weekend too. So there's all kinds of stuff coming up here. I'm excited about.
Agreed. It's really just one more kind of slowish week, maybe where you don't expect too many big things to happen. And then, like you said, rivalry week will be awesome, like it always is. But first, let's talk Week 12. And right out of the gate, we think of some teams, and we think of the Big 12 conference, and we think of up for grabs. A lot of teams competing for it. Race maybe got a little bit thinner after this weekend. Arizona takes down number 25 Cincinnati 30-24 to knock down the Bearcats to 7-3. Um, Look, I'm not going to say it's completely impossible. I don't think they're technically entirely eliminated from the race yet, but you're going to need some help from who BYU and who Texas Tech play for the remainder of the season if you want any shot, any hope at the Big 12 title. Um, but just kind of quick thoughts on that game. And Arizona look kind of a team we were excited about 2 years ago. And then DeBoer leaves Washington. Jed Fish leaves and takes the Washington job. And it's not necessarily been bad, like 7-3 season, but kind of the promise we saw out of this team with Noah Fafita, still playing good, still playing well, but not really the dominance we expected. But to go out here and again put themselves at 7-3 and still remain hanging around in this Big 12 conference, still impressive. What the Wildcats have done feels like it's kind of gone under the radar after all the changes that happened an off season ago or two, really.
Yeah, but let me just say, like it is, Austin, we are still not done figuring out this stuff in the Big 12. I mean, I found it online where there is literally still a six-way tie for first at 7-2 still in play in the Big 12. I mean, so we're nowhere close, near done figuring out what this Big 12 could be. But as far as this game goes, credit to Arizona where credit's due. Noah Fafita actually becomes the all-time leader in touchdown passes at Arizona with this game.
Awesome.
So big shout out to the legend here. We've been fans of his since he took over as starter in that miracle year 2 years ago. But pure and simple in this game came down to turnovers for Cincinnati. They were able to run the ball pretty well, but Brendan Sorsby, two interceptions in the game. It's not really good. And that was the thing that we wondered. We knew they could run the ball, Cincinnati could, but when it came down the quarterback play in the Utah game, how did that go? Ugh, we don't even remember that. And then this one, you have
Yeah.
the turnovers ultimately cost you against Arizona. And again, Cincinnati is not out of it. They have a big matchup this weekend where they can get right back into the thick of this conference stuff. But uh, good win for Arizona on the road, and credit to that staff and everyone. Been a really positive year, 7-3, like you talked about, to the disappointment of what was supposed to be a big year last year. Now this year at 7-3, big time win on the road for the Wildcats.
Completely agree. Then we'll spin it to college game day. Notre Dame Fighting Irish take on the Pitt Panthers. But look, this one not particularly close. Notre Dame 37-15. And the Irish got going quick and in a hurry, and it was hard to catch up. And uh look, I've really been impressed with how CJ Carr's kind of gotten it together this season. I know compared to the first two games of the season, the rest of the Notre Dame schedule hasn't been too much of a grind, but you talk about a game against number 22 Pitt this week, and now the number 15 team in the country, USC, they had a big win over earlier in the year. It just kind of feels like, again, kind of on par with how last season kind of went after the disappointing loss to Northern Illinois. played Purdue and kind of got their feet back under them. It was two kind of rough weeks to start the season, but against two we've seen high caliber teams this season, and now Notre Dame's kind of got their footing under them, and you kind of wonder how much damage this team can do now that CJ Carr's got this confidence and Jeremiah Love's firing on all cylinders. When we talk about playoff time, a team that kind of looks like as long as they win out, they're going to hang around this 8, 9, 7, 8, 9 spot in the playoff and have a chance to do some damage.
And some people would look at that and say, "Oh, so that'd be tough for them to get there." Let's not forget where Ohio State and Notre Dame started last year, right around that same spot. So just keep an eye out for it. But pure and simple, I talked about this game last week, Austin. I talked about how good Pitt was against the run statistically. And I was like, if they can stop Jeremiah Love, then this game could get interesting. Update. They did not stop Jeremiah Love. Did not stop him. 147 yards, rushing touchdown, looking like Braxton Miller out there with the spin move in the middle. Great finish by him. The big thing, though, the Pitt offense just really struggled. I mean, just was a rough day for the Pitt offense. Couldn't really get anything going offensively. Even when they did, how did it happen? Or what happened after they scored? Interception and a 2-point return for Notre Dame the other way. Whenever you think, oh, they're trying to get back into it, the offense is clicking, and then you have that happen. So just not a good day for Pittsburgh. But kind of like Pat Narduzzi said prior to the week, Austin, they could get beaten the game like 100-0, beat them by 100, and they still know what's at stake this Saturday against Georgia Tech and on the next Saturday against Miami to be in that ACC championship game, to have a chance to make the college football playoffs, still very much in play. But in this game, pure and simple, Notre Dame kicked their butt. Notre Dame played like a team that knew this was their last chance to impress the committee, and they did that. So good for Notre Dame. Really, they have Syracuse and Stanford left. Win those games, and they won't affect you that much. They won't be like, wow, they beat Stanford. That's a big one to boost them. No, your resume as far as the big games is pretty much finished. So the full resume for Notre Dame is pretty much set. If they win out, though, like you said, they'll be somewhere in that 7, 8, 9 range for the first round, where they could be hosting a home playoff game, or depending on seeding, they could be going on the road, which I will just say, if that's a road team coming, Notre Dame going on the road to someone in the first round, not going to be an easy matchup for somebody if that's the case.
Yeah, you talk about kind of their road presence. This was a road game. You think about the Miami game at the beginning of the season. Sure, they lost, but they lost by 3 with the freshman quarterback playing his first game of collegiate football against now what we've seen is one of the best defensive lines in college football. So you think about how close that ball game was.
Murdering Arkansas into a new
Yeah.
oblivion in Fayetteville. Let's not forget about that one.
So the road presence for this squad is certainly there, like you said. Let's quickly talk about South Carolina, Texas A&M. Look, in the first half of this game, absolute hurting by South Carolina. You had messaged me about it, and my exact words were the South Carolina team we were supposed to have all season long. But what happens in this game is really what's happened to South Carolina all year. The offense stalls out because the defense figures out how to stop Lenore Sellers. The receivers can't make anything happen. Rushing yards, this team can't run the football. 30
Mm-hmm.
yards, your leading rusher in this game is absolutely embarrassing. And Marcel Reed flipped a switch. He would have been a player of the week this week had it not been the a billion turnovers in the first half of this game, because his second half was truly art. A shutout by the Texas A&M defense in the second half. Truly what they needed to win this game by just a point. Really great job by Mike Elko. And I thought the comments from Shane Beamer, who I do like as a head coach after the game, just kind of didn't love what he had to say. They asked, did maybe you get a little too full of yourself? And obviously you don't want to say that
Mm-hmm.
coming out of a game, tough loss when you really thought you had it. But he says nobody was celebrating heading into that locker room. We were getting down to business. Video replay would beg to differ, as Shane Beamer is dancing and celebrating and pumping up the crowd as he trots into the end zone. And I'm not saying he's wrong for being happy, for being up on the number 3 team in the nation. But when you get beat and when you get asked, were you celebrating a little too early? To say I wasn't celebrating when 1,000, how many fans were in the stadium? eyewitnesses, and camera footage everywhere. I wouldn't exactly say nobody was celebrating. At least one person was celebrating heading into the locker room for this one.
Yeah, yeah, that was truly awkward in the post game. I'm surprised no one just didn't go, coach, you care to explain this?
Yeah,
Do you want to go back on your comment now? But watching this game in the first half, I'll say like it is because, like I said, yeah, I was texting you this is South Carolina team. We're Lenore Sellers airing it out. Nick Harbor's making the big plays. The defense is forcing turnovers. Dylan Stewart with the strip sack, the interceptions. And I'm like, man, where the heck has this team been at the entire season? But in my head also, I thought this is where it happens to A&M. You know, because I said it the week before. I was like, they did it. They got over the 8-4 hump. They're good. And I saw at halftime. I was like, oh no, oh, so this is the price they pay for going over 8-4. Oh no, but almost like an officer giving Nick Harbor a bump. It kind of felt like the game just kind of flipped in that second half. Marcel Reed, I swear, I think someone just took him, like dressed in his uniform in the first half, and then the
yeah.
actual Marcel Reed came out in the second half. He balled out offensively, throwing all over the place. And like I said, the South Carolina offense just stalled out and stalled out and stalled out. And then A&M gives them a chance on what is, I still don't know what A&M was thinking on that play on the goal line with the double pass to the side there. Don't even want to think about that. Colin Klein, don't do that, bro. But
Yeah.
South Carolina still had a chance, and I don't know if it was Lenore Sellers just panicking, running for his life, but it kind of felt like he didn't know what he was doing on that 4th and 10 with the game on the line. So, good win for A&M, 10-0. They have all but set themselves up now to be a playoff team officially with this win, and now obviously, with all the SEC tiebreakers, who knows who would get in? But you beat Texas, you will be in the SEC championship for the first time ever in the team's history in the SEC there. So big win for them. And for South Carolina, it's just, I want them to be better than what they are. And man, this is just painful.
Then we got a pretty impressive win as this American continues to go up and down. Navy with a 41-38 victory over South Florida. Now I believe right now a four-way tie. Obviously, we'll talk about another game that happened, but a four-way tie at the top of the American. I think we'll talk about the rankings in a minute. Navy, probably my biggest robbery of a top 25 spot. I'm
Absolutely.
going to say there are some teams down there at the bottom that I don't think aren't like top tier caliber, but we're talking about American and which team is going to be battling for right now a college football playoff spot. That is our, conference, our group of five conference that is ranked right now. That's got the best shot at a college football playoff shot, in my opinion. And we've got several teams sitting at 1-2 losses this season. I would have liked to see a little bit more representation. It's nothing against Arizona State, but at
Right.
3 losses, we're not really talking about Arizona State going to the college football playoff. So I don't think right now we need to worry about whether the 7-3 Sun Devils need to have a number beside their name when we could very well be talking about the midshipmen playing in the American Conference Championship. Right now, I believe they're the technically number one team with all the tiebreakers and everything right
Right.
now.
So,
I believe they're at the top. So I don't really know why this team. I get maybe you don't think they're as good as Tulane. I think that's a completely fair argument to make, and Tulane may be ranked higher than them. But I think right now they deserve a number beside their name a little bit more than Arizona State or Mizzou. I'll go ahead and put that out there. Nothing against Mizzou either, but I don't really like Mizzou being ranked right now.
yeah,
Just don't love it.
don't even get me started on Mizzou there. But with South Florida here, this breaks my heart because this ultimately, as great as their non-conference was, this ultimately really ruins any chance of South Florida making it. The good news is, I'm hoping and praying that Alex Gulch is just looking to get familiar and will have more time to visit Fayetteville, which I hear is great during this time of year. If he really wants to go up to Fayetteville and just look around the Arkansas Razorback facility up there. You have more
Yeah.
time now, so be my guest, Mr. Alex Golsh. Not
Be a
going to
little
tell you how to
freer
run
this
your life.
January.
But as far as this game goes, credit to Navy. your guy, one of the guys that was on our team and player of the week recently, Eli Heidenreich, I think is how you pronounce the name.
I believe
What a
so.
day he had receiving 146 yards for them. The offense came ready to play and outscored South Florida in this game. Which, if you had told me that Navy was going to outscore them, I'd be like, okay, so this was a low scoring affair. Navy controlled the clock, this and that.
Yeah.
No, I'm like, wait a minute. No, 41-38. Wait a minute. No, that doesn't seem right. But that's ultimately what happened here. And honestly, a turnover or two from Byron Brown, who still played awesome, but just a couple turnovers here and there kind of hurt their chances. But yeah, this American Conference is playing exactly how I thought it would. I think I said word for word before it started conference play. So I said I am scared that these teams are just going to beat each other up in this conference, and then eventually someone like a James Madison, who very much is still in play, could swoop in and steal that group of five spot because these teams are just beating each other up. But nonetheless, an awesome win for Navy and keeps them right up there at the top of that American Conference.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw something out here at you before we move on because you talk about it with this James Madison team currently sitting at 9-1. I would like to them maybe get their hats thrown in here at one of these spots. I have a thing I'd like to say. If the ACC champion and a conference that's been kind of meh is a 2 or 3 loss team, give me the American champion, give me the Sun Belt champion.
Mm-hmm.
If it is James Madison, give me James Madison and give me the hopefully 2 loss school that wins, um, that wins the American because I like Georgia Tech. I would like to see them go 1 loss and win the ACC and go to the college football playoff. But I just don't know if I can really justify a 2 loss Georgia Tech and say,
Right.
man, I'd like
Right.
to see a two loss Georgia Tech who's lost to some pretty unimpressive competition. I think it'd be personal, but again, man, I'm the kind of guy who likes to see these smaller schools get in. I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's more fun to me. So I'd like to see what chance a Navy or a James Madden and Navy or a North Texas or whoever and James Madison would have against some of these teams. Why do we need to glorify the ACC? It's not going to be Clemson, so we don't really have to come out and defend their honor too
Well,
much.
yeah.
Which I'll say this really quick. We're not really going to touch on the Clemson-Louisville game too impressive win for Clemson. Um, Louisville, again, dropping the ball majorly in this one. But to me, I'm going to be honest. I didn't love the commentary in this game. I didn't love the
Mm-mm.
talk about Clemson. They just kept hearing as the game started to wind down. It looked like Clemson was going to win this game. It was just everybody in the ACC knows how talented these guys are. They just haven't had the results, and I just completely disagree. I don't think they're a not talented team. I think all 156 programs have talented players. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
you get to Division I FBS college football by being untalented, unathletic, and just a bum. So I don't think that's, but they have not been they're not ACC, they're not past Clemson level talent. They haven't been, and that's why they're 5-5 right now. I I think Dabo Swinney's a great coach. I don't like him. I think he's a great coach, but I just don't think that it's fair to say that oh, it just hasn't gone their way. No, they just haven't been good. They just have not been good as. I mean, we talked about it all year. Kate Klubnik, we've been waiting. We've been hearing this guy is going to be a Heisman winner. This was the time. The ACC is worse than it's ever been in the last decade, and they're 5-5. I think that says enough to me about this Clemson squad. Just a
Yeah.
little personal. Maybe you have something to say about Clemson Louisville.
But talking about it really quick with the ACC, I mean, the only ones that I think make sense, Virginia and Georgia Tech are really the only two I would look at and say, okay, that's fair. But I
Agreed.
mean, Pittsburgh and SMU both are 7-3 right now. It would depend on where they're ranked at the end of the year, but I still think the chaos scenario is there if it's Pittsburgh playing in that ACC championship end of the year after the way they got humiliated by Notre Dame. But yeah, this group of five is going to be interesting, I think, with James Madison. But talking about with the ACC, yeah, it's a down year in the ACC for now, but I think me and you can agree with a recent move that happened this week. Oh, there's going to be some talent in the ACC here soon.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll touch on that a little bit more later. Also, I understand that they're kind of just ranking teams right now and they don't have any playoff implications.
Right.
We gotta get Miami out of the top 20. We have to. 8-2, and they have two I mean, look, well, I'll save the rest of this rant for when we talk about the rankings because I watched the reveal show, and for the most part, I liked what Hunter Yurchak had to say, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Which is surprising. I don't usually like what
Yeah.
Hunter Yurchak
No,
has to
I
say.
don't like anything that ever comes out of that man's
Um,
mouth.
but we'll talk about it a little bit later because I have some opinions, especially based on what he said. Um, at another big spot here, we had USC, who is fighting not just for a potential, obviously they need some things to go their way, but a chance at a Big Ten title berth. Again, need a couple things to go their way, but it's not impossible. Only one conference loss, and a college football playoff spot against an Iowa team in the rankings, fighting hard, trying to be a team that gets a big spot, keeps the number beside their name. Really a big thing for this Iowa program. And USC comes out and wins 26-21. And it's been 2 weeks in a row where I think I was put up a good fight. Obviously, shut out in the second half. Would like to see a little bit better performance from your offense. But they 5-point loss here. What 2-point loss to Oregon last week? A team that's right there, and I think is kind of trending in the right direction. Unfortunately, just kind of a lot of star power in this Big Ten and a lot of talented teams. And like we've kind of talked about this year, Lincoln Riley getting USC back on track and getting himself back in that conversation. This is why Lincoln Riley was the guy for USC. This is why Lincoln Riley's kind of regarded as one of these top head coaches in college football. And we're seeing that now as he's got himself back in those national title talks.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and add in with Iowa. Don't forget how close they were to beating Indiana earlier this year and
True.
how close they were to beating Iowa State earlier this year. I mean, there's a world where a couple of plays go here and there. We're looking at 10-0 Iowa right now, and then that
And like
making
the
just
number, maybe number two, number three in the nation. I mean,
I
look
mean,
at
if
it.
they beat Indiana and then Indiana still went in and beat Oregon, we'd be looking at it like, man, Man, yeah, it's hard. It'd be hard not to rank them in there, but I will give credit to USC for that. A great second half. The way this game started, Mark Gronowski had himself a heck of a first half. Had a passing touchdown, rushing touchdown, and a receiving touchdown in that first half. I mean, he had the trifecta for him.
Yeah,
The problem is kind of similar to South Carolina. Iowa forgot that there's this thing called a second half that needs to be played,
yeah,
and USC went out there and handled business. Like I said, USC controls its own destiny. You've got a great matchup with you got two matchups left with I don't care if they're both in the Big Ten with them. You got former Pac-12 matchups going head to head here to end the year. And you finish the year 10-2. Even if you don't make the Big Ten championship, you're sitting there and there's an argument for it. You want to know why? Because of the brand. You would look at it and go, USC on the bubble? Oh, we got to get USC in there. You know that's going to be a
yeah.
conversation that would happen at that point if they are a 10-2 team. But nonetheless,
Agreed.
a good win for USC keeps them alive. It keeps them alive.
Yeah, I think maybe the two big strikes on the wrist though for USC. I'd like personally if they go 10-2, I'd like us to carve out a spot. Let's find a spot to get this USC team in the national the college football playoff. Of course, it depends on who's there, but I like the resume this team has. I think they're a talented team. I think they'd be fun to see in the playoff, and I think it'd be good for college football to see either USC or UCLA be a good football program. I
Absolutely.
think that's good for college football. But I think the two big strikes, the Illinois loss, it's a great defense. And at the time, Illinois was ranked. But Illinois hasn't had the season they were exactly projected to. And they're not sitting in the top 25 right now. And then the Notre Dame loss. It was a close-ish game, but you're outclassed by Notre Dame. And Notre Dame, as long as Notre Dame wins out, they're going to be stealing one of those spots from you. And if Notre Dame ends up sitting at, because you talk about it right now, ACC champ, as it stands, ACC champ and American champ are outside of the top 12. So that means if
Mhm.
you come ranked in at 11 or 12, you don't get
Yep.
in the
You're.
college football playoff, even though
Yep.
you're a top 12 team. So if Notre Dame maybe ends up shifting down to one spot to that 10 between now and 2 weeks from now, or I'll say 3 weeks because you have conference champions and such.
Right,
They
right.
end up sitting at 10. You're not getting in over Notre Dame. I think the head-to-head is probably what keeps them
Absolutely.
in that
Yeah.
instance. But let's spin it over to OU Alabama, and I think me and you were both impressed. Look, the OU offense didn't have like big shocking numbers, but this was about the OU defense. And look,
Hmm.
you look at the stat sheet and you think, how did OU win this game? Because Ty Simpson still over 300 passing yards, but the defense did its job when it needed to. And this is why Brent Venables is such a great coach. I know, look, and in his time at OU, people have kind of been in on him. He hasn't taken him into the contender right away, but right now you're a contender. This game right here is why Brent Venables should be somebody's head coach. He's always going to have a great defense, and when the offense doesn't show up, his defense done the job. Look, he bailed out Clemson in his time at certain points. Look,
Hmm.
obviously they had great offenses while he was there, but they also had great defenses. And if Lawrence, Kelly Bryant throwback for you, Deshaun
Yeah.
Watson had a bad game, Brent Venables was cleaning it up for you, keeping you as a national title contender. So I think that it's awesome win here. Alabama just right there. But this was a huge win for Alabama to maybe give yourself a shot at the title at the SEC title picture. Going to take a lot of luck, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But you put yourself in a spot where it's like, hey, don't turn your backs on me. Look, we talked about it in the Ole Miss game. We said winner of Ole Miss OU is continuing to fight for a spot in the playoff, and the loser is out. And look at how
Hmm.
dead wrong we are because OU wins this game, and now they're ranked ahead of Alabama.
Yeah. Like I said, going ahead, in case you didn't listen last week or missed it, my best bet, my bet of the week was Alabama -5.5. I'll go ahead and put my hand up and say I was completely wrong, and I'm glad to be wrong. I'm not going to sit here
Yeah,
and be like, oh, woe is me with it. No, I
I
mean, I enjoyed the game. I enjoyed it, and like you said, the Oklahoma offense didn't do anything spectacular. Absolutely not. If you would have told Bama fans this is what they were going to hold Oklahoma to on like Thursday or Friday, they'd be like, okay, how much should we win by? That's what they'd be
yeah,
thinking.
exactly.
But what happened? Turnovers on punt returns and then interceptions that happened. Everything. 3 turnovers for Oklahoma that really helped them. And can I just say, it felt like, Austin, watching this game, every single play you saw an Oklahoma players trying to rip the ball out. So I think that was the point by Venables being like, look, our offense maybe isn't 100%. Is John Mateer 100% from what he was earlier in the season? Absolutely not. We are going to have to create turnovers. And if we don't, then this could be trouble. And they created the turnovers, they made the plays, and got the huge win on the road, made the stop whatever they needed to. Just picture this, Austin. You talked about that Ole Miss loss. Me and you were both sitting here and we're like, man, they have to play at Tennessee and at Alabama next. Ugh, I mean, that's going to be tough to win those games. To go on the road to Knoxville on a Saturday night and beat Tennessee is incredible. To go on the road into Bryant Denny, where Alabama had won 17 home games in a row and beat Alabama, those are two of the most impressive wins I have seen this year from any team. And that's Oklahoma. And now you're in a spot with Missouri and LSU. Beat both of them, you are going to be in this college football playoff. And who knows, maybe that gives time for John Mateer's hand to get to a point where he feels more confident and the offense can go back to it because this defense is going to give them a chance every single time they play. But for Bama, let's say it like it is, disappointing for them offensively. And, you got it now ranked number 10. Obviously, we'll talk more about that ranking in a minute. But pure and simple here for Alabama. You may not get in the SEC championship with going 10-2 because of tiebreakers here and there. I'd have to do research on that to get the main thing. I'll worry about that after this week, and then maybe I'll look into some tiebreakers. But you know, I mean, all you gotta do, Bama, all you gotta do to get in the playoff is go on the road into Jordan Hare on a Saturday night on rivalry week and beat the Auburn Tigers, who have nothing to lose. Nothing to lose in a home game on Saturday night. Yeah, what could go
How
wrong for Alabama?
How sweet is it? Look, I'm going to say this much. This game is already awesome. Every time they play at Jordan Hare, it's awesome. We already know it's going to be close. No matter who's coaching that team, no matter who plays on each side, it's going to be close. And we already know Auburn wants to beat Alabama anyway. Now you tell the Tigers that they have a chance to knock Alabama out of the college football. As it stands, Alabama's the last team in.
Hmm.
They now have a chance to knock Alabama out of the college football playoff. This game is going to be a treat. College game day should go to Auburn, Alabama, just because of those stakes alone.
And can I just say I love that even long before the rankings and everything happened, like with what Auburn the coach, like, yeah, we're putting this on Saturday Night Football because they know exactly what happens here. Again, an Auburn team with nothing to saw us, and I looked at it. That spread, you would think, oh, number 10 Bama versus 4-6 Auburn, 5.5 point spread.
That's the right
That
spread.
that
That's the
tells you
right
what's
spread.
going to happen in this game. I can't wait for it. I'll shut up so we can move on. But my gosh, I can't wait to watch that game. I can't wait.
I know. Now let's talk about the people of Harrisonburg, Virginia's second favorite team right now, the East Carolina. Uh, I don't even know what is it. Are they Pirates?
I
They're Pirate
I believe it's
adjacent.
the Pirates. I believe it's the Pirates.
I wanted to say Pirates, and then I was like, maybe they're a Buccaneer, but I don't think they're a Buccaneer now that I think about it.
No.
But you know who I'm talking about, Greenville, North Carolina's finest. Their big time 3-point victory over the Memphis Tigers puts them tied for a chance at the American title game. And look, I say the people of Harrisonburg, Virginia, where James Madison University is located, this is what James Madison needs. They need East Carolina to go undefeated, win the
Mm-hmm.
American, because no way a 11-1 if they win out, James Madison gets snubbed by a seven. Well, they won't be seven, but they'll
They'd
be
be
what,
9-3. I guess nine
nine
and
and
three or
three.
10-3, technically, depending on the conference win.
Yeah,
So
10. They'd be a 10-3 uh football program in at East Carolina. No way. So that's the team they want to keep winning right now. But look, I think it's impressive. You have the two kind of not so great non-conference losses, but we don't care about that in conference. You come in, you've only got one conference loss right now, and you're making it very, very interesting where everybody else has got to think, man, we cannot lose to ECU because man, that would be a swing. I think the Americans got it locked up if anybody else wins the American, but if ECU wins it, I think James Madison will steal the spot.
yeah, and let's remember how close they were. They played Tulane on a Thursday night in October. They were this close to beating Tulane in that game where that could change what the rankings would look like right now. It might not be Tulane sitting in that number 24 spot. It might be North Texas or Navy, whoever it is. But the thing I love late in this game is how non conservative East Carolina was. Could have gone for the field goal. You're in field goal range late, down by 3. Could play conservative. And Hauser said, absolutely not. Let's throw it deep, try to get in the end zone. A phenomenal touchdown catch to win it. And like you said, this is the one that I think all the people at James Madison are like, come on, just win this American for us. And obviously, this American conference, like we talked about, is just all over the place with it. I believe now, including East Carolina, that's 4 teams with one conference loss as of right now. So a lot would have to take care of itself. But my goodness, like I said, if East Carolina gets in, this things could get interesting for the group of 5 representative, whether it's someone from the American or them James Madison Dukes get into the college football playoff.
Yeah, it's going to be a treat watching the way some of this stuff shakes out. Then we've got Georgia, Texas. And look, just kind of non-competitive. Georgia
Yeah.
dominates 35-10 victory over Texas. And look, this is exactly what I was talking about. We
Yep.
can't just forget what Texas has done
Mm-hmm.
this season. Sure, they started to win a couple games. Okay, how did they look at the beginning of the season? And again, I don't think they looked relatively just like jaw-droppingly college football playoff ready, even when they kind of got the ball rolling.
Right.
I thought that the 10 ranking was too high, and obviously, it was because they weren't up to the challenge against Georgia here. And the 35-10 victory, absolutely huge for them, for the Bulldogs. For Texas, it feels like I will say the one thing I do like about this team, I think Arch Manning is getting more comfortable.
Yeah, I
I
think
feel like
so.
I think his performances are growing, and I think that's good. I think that means next year we could see a really, really good Texas team led by a really, really good Arch Manning, which I think is going to be fun for college football and fun for teams in the next NFL draft, not the upcoming one, but the one after.
Yeah.
Because truly, if a Manning ends up being one of the top QBs in college football come next college football season, you know there's going to be a bidding war to get to the top of the draft and get him.
Well, yeah.
Um,
Well, let's just say like it is. If he's in the conversation for the top quarterbacks, but he has the last name Manning, he will be the top quarterback. Let's just leave it at
that's
that.
true.
I mean,
But your thoughts on this butt whooping from Georgia?
yeah,
The
nothing
Longhorns.
else to say other than what exactly we told you so from what we both said. I believe my said word for word. I'd have to go back and watch TikTok. I said it's not even close. Georgia outclasses Texas when you really think about it. Now, when you look at the athletes and who the players are for each team, you look at it and you think, okay, should be a close game. But the one thing that Georgia has that Texas still has not had against Georgia in all three matchups where Georgia's won all three of them, they don't have that killer mentality in them offensively or just in a tough matchup. Kirby Smart's going to get the best out of his guys no matter what every single week. And with Texas, and each time it kind of feels like just not ready for it whenever they do it. And again, credit to Gunnar Stockton. The man has looked incredible the last couple of weeks for Georgia. I give him credit because coming into the season, I had my doubts. I'll put my hand up. I had my doubts for what Gunnar Stockton was going to look like in this Georgia offense. He has looked awesome and looked a lot better. And dare I say it, Georgia might be peaking at the right time. This is the best they've looked this season because we expected them, at least me and you expected them to whoop Texas. But even in the back of our minds, I'm sure we're like, they should, but knowing it'll probably be a close game, and then Georgia will escape by like a 10-point win. But no, they flat out dominated. And then Kirby's like, oh, let me rub a little salt in the wound with a surprise onside kick up 11 points. That man, that's how you know he's a madman. Who does a
Yeah,
surprise onside kick up by 11 points at home? You're not doing that. And yet Kirby Smart's doing it, and ultimately leads to them blowing this out. The I do like though whenever we talk about the rankings, Texas, even if they beat A&M to end the year, I still don't think they can get in even with that. So I do like
I
that
agree.
part. But big win for Georgia here, dominating the Longhorns.
Yeah, and I believe this punches their ticket to the SEC championship, sitting at 9-1. I don't exactly know all the tiebreakers, but
I
they don't
believe
play another.
I did see one thing talking about it that said like we wouldn't know like who clinches in the SEC championship. Here it is. I found it. Yeah. It was someone said with Texas A&M's victory over South Carolina, no one can clinch a spot in the SEC championship game until the final weekend of games on November 28th and 29th. So
I
we're not even going to know yet.
Okay, that's interesting to see. I figured they might be in just because they don't play another SEC game. They play Sanford this weekend, I believe, and then they play Georgia Tech to end the year.
Ooh,
Um,
okay. I think I might have found all the scenarios. That's a lot of scenarios. Wow, I didn't
okay,
realize there's
drop
that
them
many.
on me here before we get into our teams of the week. I'd like to hear
Okay,
this.
so the championship game scenarios, how Georgia clinches is an Alabama loss or a Texas A&M loss or an Ole Miss win and a win in strength of schedule over Alabama. That's how those are the ways Georgia can get into the SEC
Okay.
championship. Those are all those. For Alabama, they need to win and plus plus basically loss. They need to win and Texas A&M lose, win and Ole Miss lose. Like those are the two options, and then the third one is win and then a win in strength of schedule over Georgia. Now, Texas A&M is simple, kind of like we knew Austin. They beat Texas, they're in, pure and simple. They
Yeah.
beat Texas, they're in the playoff. But they can also get in if Alabama and Ole Miss lose. That's how. And then Ole Miss is still very much alive. They need to win, and Texas A&M and Alabama need to lose in order for them to get in. So there's still a million different scenarios. And like I mentioned, this could come down to strength of schedule between Georgia and Bama, who gets in.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. That makes it more fun for Georgia. Maybe a little bit more scary. You don't. you really Georgia has no more of a say. I mean, no
Right.
matter what they do the last two games of the season, they're kind of out of it. I guess they've done all they can do. I don't know, but I feel like with all the scenarios up in the air, maybe on that last Saturday, I'd like to play with at least a chance to make a difference.
Hey, how much you want to bet they are the biggest Auburn Tiger fans in that Saturday night game?
I
They are
know.
probably the biggest Auburn Tiger fans on the face of the planet that night.
Yeah, I completely agree because yeah, if they win, they're in, is what it sounds like to me. As long as Bama is it, as long as Ole Miss wins.
Yeah. I mean, from the bet with Bama, everything is they got to win. Basically, Bama has to win. And then Bama needs this to happen or this to happen and then this to happen. And then maybe they can get in. With Georgia, like I said, with Georgia, all they need is Alabama or A&M to lose. And then the Ole Miss win and strength the schedule over Alabama. But if either Alabama or A&M lose, which is very possible for both of them on that last week, then they're in. So the SEC is going to be a chaotic scenario to watch entering that final Saturday of the season.
Yeah, that'll be definitely interesting to see. I'll be tuning in extra hard. But let's talk about our teams of the week here. Who are your top five teams from this kind of interesting, exciting weekend where we saw a lot of scenarios kind of get set up for us?
Yeah. So talking about my top five teams of the week, I know you're not going to like this one, but number five, I want to give Clemson its due for a win on the road at Louisville. Not an easy win, not an easy place to play at Louisville. With a season that's basically been dead really since the end of August. To get a win like this on the road against the Louisville team who was still trying to fight and compete in the ACC, uh, pretty impressive for them. Number four, had to get A&M on the list. I mean, come the frick on. You come back from down 30-3. We expect to see you in there on the list. Number three, I had East Carolina. Just enjoyed that thrilling ending and getting the win. Again, they're like we talked about. They're the chaos scenario. They're the one that we're all looking at, be like, what's East Carolina gonna do now? Number two, had to show some love to Navy. As much as it hurt me to watch South Florida go down, my South Florida Bulls go down, it hurt me. But Navy, a phenomenal win. Now in the driver's seat in that American, and very much still alive for that college football playoff. But number one, look, I don't care if only half the team showed up. You go into Tuscaloosa and end a 17-game home winning streak against Alabama, who has looked virtually unstoppable since that Florida State game. You're getting my number one spot. So that's why I got the Sooners as my number one team.
Yeah, and number five, I went with Texas A&M. Very similar reasons for you. I think, although it was an opponent they were supposed to beat, and although maybe it's not the best thing to happen for a number three team in the nation, this was an awesome comeback. Never doubted themselves, made the plays, got the job done, and walked out of there with a victory. At number four, I went with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. A little bit of bias for me, but even though I expected them to win this game, a lot of people did. They went out and they won it big like they were supposed to, and they made
Mm-hmm.
that last big case to the College Football Playoff Committee that we're worthy. We're a different team than we were in the first 2 weeks of the season, and we're ready to try and make another run at the national championship. So I like giving them the credit there. Number three, like you said, I went with Eastern Carolina. This was kind of a team that just had to be on this list. What they're doing right now, like we kind of talked about, one of the ultimate chaos scenarios right now for the college football playoff and how things might get shaken and stirred for that committee if ECU does kind of win out and end up winning that American. It would be truly something else to see. So I like seeing the way this team's playing. At number two, I went with the Navy midshipmen. A win over USF. Put yourself in contention again at the top of this American as well. I think it'd be a treat to see the triple option in the college football playoff. I
Absolutely.
truly, truly would love to see that. So I need it to happen. And then number one, I'm with OU. Everything you said about this Oklahoma team was right. This was kind of a big, stunning win that shook up the college football playoff just when we thought it might be settled and we might know who's getting in and who's not getting in. This was a huge kind of shake and rattle And it puts a team that we thought, I mean, a team that was looking at a bye
Mm-hmm.
for the college football playoff is now on the ropes just like that. When we look at Instagram, OU gets some votes, ECU gets some votes. But over on Twitter, it was no contest. ECU, unanimous decision over there. And that's got Eastern Carolina as our team of the week this week.
Oh, hey, shout out the Pirates of East Carolina. Absolutely love to see it. Um, who knows? Might not be done on our list depending on what happens the rest of the year. They might not be done on our list. So big congrats to the Pirates of East Carolina.
And then let's take it to our player of the week, top five players of the week. There were some honestly awesome performances this week. So I'm
Absolutely.
happy to hear what you got to say.
So number five for me, I had to find somebody from that Oklahoma defense. There was a couple guys, like I said, I was literally just like looking through the stats. Because if I wanted to, I think I text you word for word. I said if I could, I would just put for my player of the week Oklahoma defense. I would have put all 11 players on the Oklahoma defense. But I just had Kip Lewis, the linebacker. I think I've had him on a list in the past, if I think so. Um,
Last year we had him on a couple lists, I remember.
that's what I'm thinking of. But he had 2 sacks in the game, made some big plays defensively for the Sooners. Had to put him on the list. Number four, Makai Lemon, probably one of the more underrated receivers in the country at USC. Had a 130 plus receiving yard game. When we get to their matchup this weekend, that team that they're facing could have some issues with him. So that's something to keep an eye on. He's my number four. Number three, I want to show some love to Gunnar Stockton. Like I said, phenomenal game, was efficient, made the big throws, and just been really impressed by him the last couple of weeks, especially. Just been overall impressed at how well he's been, how efficient he's been offensively. But number two, Keywan Lacey at Ole Miss had a big game against them Florida Gators. Uh, Ran the football really well, multiple touchdowns, 200 yards. But at number one is a guy that I've fallen in love with this year. I just wish he wasn't wearing a Missouri uniform. Like it is. When you have 300 yards rushing in one game against an SEC opponent, you get my respect there. So Ahmad Hardy, the running back of Missouri, is my number one player of the week. 300 yards rushing on 25 carries and touchdowns. He averaged 12 yards a carry, Austin. He averaged a first down a carry. Dominated Mississippi State.
That's just incredible. I had highlighted some running back performances that I like too, and some running backs that I've really enjoyed watching this year. But starting first at number five, I went with Gunnar Stockton. Everything you said and more, man, this guy has been so impressive. Look, after watching the Notre Dame game and watching kind of the way, you know, getting just one extra guy in pressure just kind of rattled him last year. And it's like I knew it was kind of, sudden and kind of unexpected for him to end up being the starter when he was the starter. But I was like, man, if he can't function against pressure at all, what's going to happen to this Georgia team? They don't have the same kind of crazy run game that they had in years past.
Mm-hmm.
And now, their quarterback's scared of a little bit of pressure. What's going to happen? And look, he didn't have a great, perfect start to the season. But now, like you said, the last couple of weeks, he's playing well. He's throwing the ball all over the field. And he looks like one of the top quarterbacks in this SEC. So I had to give my hats off there. At number four, I'm with Cam Edwards, the running back at UConn. Unfortunately for the UConn Huskies, Joe Fagano's interception streak was broken
I was
this
heartbroken.
weekend. Initially, why I checked the box score for this game, but 142 yards rushing and a couple touchdowns ain't that bad for old Cam Edwards, who helped the Huskies get a big victory this past weekend. A running back who I really, really love this season, who I don't think is getting enough credit because of who his quarterback is. At number three, I've got Caleb Hawkins at North
Mm,
Texas. This guy's been playing really good. Look, Metzelmaker is slinging the ball over the field. We know that. He's leading the FBS in passing yards, I believe. But for Caleb Hawkins, he's a 80 to 100 plus yard rusher a night kind of guy. And he's been really solid for honestly this just break you down North Texas offense. A team that I feel like has kind of gotten lost in the shuffle here in the American, but sitting at 9-1 and only one conference loss to USF, which even though they're sitting at 7-3 right now, I don't think it's a bad loss to have on the old resume. So for Caleb Hawkins, just a treat to watch. At number two, highest I think I've maybe ever rated the defensive play. No, I Maxwell Hairston definitely was in my number
Yeah.
one spot. I think that week that he was like the unanimous
Two pick
player of
sixes
the
in a
week.
game. I think that's earned him.
Yeah.
He earned it.
But maybe the second highest player I've ever ranked defensively. I went with Jacob Rodriguez, the linebacker at Texas Tech. We're talking about a
Hmm.
guy who Texas Tech's going on this big campaign to be in the Heisman. He's been awesome this year. You look at his numbers compared to Manti Te'o's season where he was a Heisman finalist, maybe even the runner-up that year, if I'm correct. Um, and it that blows Manti Te'o out of the water in just about every statistical category. Heisman Manti was robbed, so I am going to root for the Jacob Rodriguez Heisman if it doesn't go to Jeremiah Love like it rightfully should. But to get this guy involved and say, oh, I love that they're like, oh, only quarterbacks can win the Heisman. Let's sub him in at quarterback and let him rush a
Yeah.
touchdown. I thought that was such a treat to be like, he is a quarterback. Uh, but at number one, you have your Ahmad Hardy. I have my Keywan Lacey. I've liked this guy. I've loved watching this guy. I've been yearning for him to have another big game where I could stick him at the top of the list. And over 200 yards rushing for Ole Miss. Uh, I had to give some love to my guy Kawan Lacey. He's just a treat to watch. Um, when we look at the Instagram polls, Ahmad Hardy, Caleb Hawkins, Jacob Rodriguez, and Kawan Lacey all getting votes, and then Kawan Lacey and Jacob Rodriguez getting votes over on Twitter. Just sheer volume, just being on both lists, just getting
Hmm.
votes everywhere you can. Kewan Lacey is the Bull Take Podcast Player of the Week.
Love to see it again. Great performance against Florida. I mean, he was the reason they were able to win that game because Florida was very close to making even more chaos in the SEC on that Saturday night by almost beating them. So he showed up big time to help them out. Absolutely deserves credit for that Player of the Week award.
Yeah, let's get into this college football playoff, and let's start with the top 10 here. Uh, Ohio State still at number one, Indiana still at number two, Texas A&M still at number three. You know what's going on there. But then we
Hmm.
had everything start to shake up with that Alabama loss. Georgia at four, Texas Tech at five, Ole Miss now at six, Oregon now at seven, OU at eight, Notre Dame stays put at nine, and Alabama drops 6 spots all the way down to 10. Thoughts on this top 10?
I will say, minor complaint I have. I kind of wish that Texas Tech would have jumped ahead of Georgia here and inside the top four. I get why they didn't because well they beat number 10 Texas, and the committee saw that in there. But I kind of wish Texas Tech would have made the jump over them to number four. I do like them moving Bama down to 10. It's basically hey, we're still going to keep you in, but you screw up again, we're gonna have to have a conversation here. So I do like that. As far as the rest of it, I really have no issues. Again, my only issue I have would be kind of like I said. I think Texas Tech should be ahead of Georgia, but that's just my biased opinion there. Um, I will say this. Talking about you mentioned the great Hunter Yurchek and his
Yeah.
wonderful analogies as he's taken over as the leader of the college football playoff chairman. Which, by the way, who the frick voted for that to let him be the man in charge of speaking? Did we not hear this man on a podium a few weeks ago say, Arkansas is not built to win national championships, so we're not good enough to win national championships.
Yeah.
Who's like, you know what? That's the voice we need in charge of the college football playoff.
And ordinarily, if you're Arkansas, you might want to have the inside a guy on the inside to maybe try and
Right.
hey, should we put Arkansas in? But with like you said, the way he's been talking about Arkansas, he's like, hey, Arkansas should be dead last in whatever rankings we're doing. Is it like the
Uh,
type of ear whispering Hunter Yurchak
yeah.
is probably doing for the
I think
committee?
so. But the one thing I want to add with Hunter, he talked about it. And the only thing I have an issue with is not with Notre Dame and Miami being like where they're at and stuff. I have no issue with that Notre Dame rank because Notre Dame's playing better than Miami right now. But he said, I think when you look at Notre Dame and Miami, we really compare the losses of those two teams. And I mean, let's say like it is, we all know the obvious factor there that Miami did beat Notre Dame. I'm like, you know, the Hunter didn't think before he said that there. When you think, I get the losses and I get with Notre Dame and the Miami loss looking, not as bad as maybe the SMU and the Louisville loss there. I still just think it's an argument that we're going to have the rest of the year with not just like few people, but everyone's going to be talking about the comparison with Notre Dame and Miami at the end of the season. And I'm not really worried about it right now because it'll take care of itself. Like Miami has two ACC games left. If they win them both, they'll probably get an opportunity to get in as an at-large team potentially. If they don't, then they shouldn't be in. So I'm really not worried about it. Just thought it was kind of odd his wording there on that.
I, I'm kind of, you bring it up, and I had like the opposite thing to say about this quote. I was going to bring this up too. I actually liked what he had to say, and I do agree that kind of what you're saying when he says compare the two losses, and everybody thinks, oh, they lost to Miami. I do
Right.
agree that kind of the way he said it is weird, but I
Yeah.
think his essence and what he's saying is right, and I'm actually glad to hear it because I think this is personally the right way to look at it. If Notre Dame and Miami had just played last week and Miami had won, then I think you can make the argument, oh, maybe Miami's losses aren't good, but they just beat Notre Dame
Right.
and they
Right.
should be ranked ahead of Notre Dame. But what he's saying is, you look at the two losses, and both of Miami's losses stink. They're bad. They're really bad losses. And Notre Dame's losses, though one of them is to Miami, are to top 13 ranked
Yeah.
teams. And Notre Dame has played like a completely different team since the beginning of the season. This isn't, and Miami, I would say the same thing. In typical Mario Cristobal fashion, they are playing substantially worse than they played to start the season.
Yep.
So I would argue that it's been we to compare the Notre Dame and Miami that played in the very first week of the season in Miami to comparing the two teams right now, I think is a completely different ball game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
so
that
I
and
like
that not and that goes not just for Notre Dame and Miami, but that goes for any early season matchup that we're
agree.
talking about. Like let's say it was like LSU and Clemson, like that big matchup, but let's say it was this scenario where that happened. They'd be like, well, LSU beat Clemson star of the year, so this and that and that and that. And then you'd be like, okay, that's in week one. If you're so focused on the teams that play now, different story there. So I do agree with that. I agree with that.
I think again, I like the job the AP poll has done at protecting teams and the college football playoff. AP poll and college football playoff have done a very good job in the last couple of years protecting teams who go out there and take a big swing and play a tough game to start the season.
Right.
And that doesn't get hung over your head for the rest of the time. It shouldn't. You played a game, and it was a great game. Also, who can hold that over Notre Dame's head? They lost by a possession with a freshman quarterback.
Right.
Again, personal bias a little bit. But I like that he was just blunt. We didn't compare the two teams. They're in two different ballparks, and I think that's a completely fair statement. I think Notre Dame losing to Miami is so August, and right now we're talking about who's going to be playing in January. I think we've seen two different teams, and I think it's completely fair to say we're not comparing the two teams. But I do agree when he's like, "Oh, when you look at their losses." Well, yes, when you look at their losses, he lost to Miami.
Yeah,
He
right.
didn't say
Yeah.
it in the way it needed to be said. He should have just said, "Miami kind of stinks right now, and Notre Dame's playing like a much better
Yeah. Like
football
if he
team."
would have just said
Number,
word for word, the reason we rank Notre Dame higher is we think Notre Dame's playing the better football right now than Miami. If you say that
he's
right now,
right.
then I'm like, okay, that's a fair statement. I'm not going to disagree with you there. I will not disagree with you. But the way he said, I'm like, yeah. But absolutely, I do agree with that.
Yeah. So, I think it's the right kind of logic. I just look. I know that they could have a chance. Well, let me just get through it first.
Yeah.
11, we've got BYU, who's right there on the cusp. Number 12, we've got Utah right there on the cusp. Number 13, Miami, 14, Vandy, and 15, USC. And I think the committee's right. We've probably hit a ceiling for Vandy. At 14, that's probably maybe the best it's going to get for them right now. Maybe just a little bit better if things get really crazy. It wouldn't be impossible maybe for them to do something wild, but I don't think it's probably going to happen.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say is, I know there is like the like smallest chance that Miami can make it if I think they need what they need Georgia Tech or Virginia to lose, right?
Yeah, I
Uh,
forget. There's a whole bunch of scenario that would have to happen for them to get in with that. But
um,
I'll add real quick talking about with Vandy. Really, my only thing here talking about. Don't forget Vanderbilt plays at Tennessee on rivalry weekend, who's the 20th ranked team in the country right now in these college football playoff rankings. I really don't think they should be, but right now they're ranked 20th. So Vandy goes on the road and beats the top 20 Tennessee on the road and finishes 10-2. Then I think that there's a fair argument that could be made there. But they would have to go in and win in Knoxville on rivalry weekend. They have to do that before there's any consideration. Because besides that, I agree with you. I think their ceiling right now would be 14. Um, and obviously, like we said, Bama's the last team in because BYU and Utah, first two teams out right there. And you know that's got to kind of suck for Utah. So I know Utah is rooting for BYU to go down this Saturday so they can jump ahead of them because if it comes down to one of them getting in, head to head tiebreaker, going to go to BYU at this point. So no issues with these guys, but these are the ones we're all looking at right now as could they be one of those last at large teams to sneak in? These are what we're looking at with these guys 11 through 15.
Agreed. And just to finish up on what I was saying on Miami, I think they should be ranked. I don't think you can rank them ahead of Georgia Tech. I just don't think it's right. I'm sorry. I know they're Miami. I know that probably on paper they're the better team, but it just in what world are we ranking a two-loss team ahead of a one-loss team? I'll say this. If Georgia Tech was in a different conference, or even if Miami was right now slate, like if the season ended today, Miami would be in the ACC championship. If either of those things were true, I wouldn't care. But we're talking about literally the two teams right now who would play in the ACC championship if the season ended today are ranked
Right.
below Miami. I think that's crazy. I understand, again, right now we're just ranking the best 25 teams in the committee's
Right. Right.
opinion, and we're not actually thinking about who's going to go to the college football playoff. Because, again, the ACC championship will settle itself. Winner of the ACC is probably going to get in, and everybody else will miss. I understand that right now is the case. But it bothers me that even right now, when we project the college football playoff, we're looking at a team who right now is not playing in their conference championship.
Yeah.
I Too bad, so sad. So what? You have one of the best defenses in college football. So what? You've had a pretty exciting offense. You've lost two abysmal games, and Georgia Tech has one loss. Put Georgia Tech at 15, scoop Vandy and USC up, and put Miami below Georgia Tech. That's my personal opinion.
Okay.
But let's talk about 16 through 20 here. Georgia Tech at 16, Texas at 17. Dropping a whole 7 spots. Committee did not take that loss lightly. 18 Michigan, 19 Virginia, and number 20 Tennessee. I was gonna say UVA, and then my brain melted on what UVA meant.
UVA.
Once I
Guys.
realized I didn't want to just say the abbreviation. But thoughts kind of here in this spot.
Like I said with Texas, I think it's to the point where if Texas were to beat A&M, I think it'd be hard for them to get in. Not impossible, but sitting there at 9-3, it'd be hard to kind of keep them in, especially with that Florida loss. I mean, that Florida loss is going to hurt their resume a lot. Um, the Michigan is interesting at 18 because if they win out, which would include a win against number one Ohio State, a team that has looked borderline untouchable this year against pretty much everyone they played. They go and beat them and they finish 10-2, don't make the Big Ten championship. Then there's an argument for Michigan to get in because they would have the best win in the country out of everybody because they would have beaten the only team that has been number one and has not really had anybody compete with them. So That's an interesting point there.
I need to know tiebreaker scenarios for the Big Ten. Uh, because I don't know them right now. And you said it. If Michigan wins out, that includes a win over Ohio State. They'd both be one loss. Um,
Yeah.
I don't exactly know who USC or Oregon is slated to play. Well, no, I don't because now the way the conferences work,
Yeah,
they don't
okay, so
play.
right now, Indiana and Ohio State are both undefeated right now at the top. USC and Oregon obviously play each other this weekend. So one of those teams is going to be eliminated. One of
Gonna
those
be out.
is out. Michigan's at 6-1. Now, I think it would depend if USC beats Oregon and wins out. Remember, USC beat Michigan head to head earlier this year. So USC would be ahead of Michigan, and then Michigan be ahead of Ohio State. So that tiebreaker scenario is kind of all over the place, but it will get a little bit easier because the USC Oregon losers out. Like I said, USC Oregon losers out. They're not making the Big Ten
Yeah.
championship, and it'll come down to Ohio State. Winner of that matchup between USC and Oregon and Michigan, and then Ohio State, Michigan, obviously how that plays out.
Really, I guess the question that I'm really asking is if the Wolverines take down
Yeah,
Ohio State, do they steal their spot in the Big Ten championship?
I, I think so. I would think so. That would make sense to me. I'd have to do research. I don't have research on the Big Ten tiebreakers on me as of right now. I'd have to do some research. But I mean, to me, that would make sense. I mean, just personal opinion. I think that they would steal their spot because they earned it. Beating number one team in the country, beating the team that's been undefeated in conference play, they earned the right. I just don't know with these tiebreakers, depending on who would play who, what they look at as the number one thing. I don't really know off the top of my head.
I've got it pulled up. I will read it in just a second. But let's talk about these last five teams here. And I'm going to call it the three teams that shouldn't be in because I'm not happy with three of these teams getting in here at
Yep.
7-3. Illinois at 21, 7-3. Mizzou at 22, 7-3. Houston at 23. I'm okay with Houston. Tulane at 24. Arizona State at 25, 7-3. You're telling me we can't get North Texas or Navy in either of those spots? One's 9-1, one's 8-2. We can't start to work in the American teams who are going to be fighting for a college football playoff spot. We can't just go ahead and rank them in the top 25 over a 7-3 Illinois, a 7-3 Mizzou, and a 7-3 Arizona State.
Yeah.
Um, this is
Flat
coming
out,
from
I don't get how Missouri is ranked. No disrespect to the Tigers. I'm not trying to be mean in any sort of way. Their best win is what? Kansas? Is that the best win Missouri has this year? 5-5 Kansas? And they're 0-3 versus ranked teams. So I don't get how Missouri's ranked at all. Houston, I kind of understand. Arizona State, I love Kenny Dillingham. I really don't get why they're ranked right now. I agree with you. What about North Texas? What about Navy? Like, let's get all the American teams, those three teams, get them in the mix here at the top. And then if they lose, then it plays out and it works out there. So I agree with you on some of these ones at the end of the top 25.
So look, first tiebreaker is head to head. So let me
Okay.
look here because if Oregon and Ohio State have not played this year, am I correct in saying
Not
that?
that I'm aware of. Not off the top of my head. I don't think they have.
Let me look at their schedule because if they haven't, I think that would eliminate Ohio State because they've lost to Michigan. So I
Right.
think at the first tiebreaker, they would be out, and then it would come down to record against common conference opponents for these two. And that's where this kind of would get a little bit interesting. So really, if these three teams went out, I don't know what would happen if USC. I'm not going to even try and think about what would happen
If I had to
if
think about it with USC, because if Ohio State loses to Michigan, then Michigan would be ahead of Ohio State head to head. But if USC beats Oregon and then beats UCLA, and they both have one loss in conference between USC and Michigan, then obviously USC would have the head to head tiebreaker over them. So
okay. So didn't mean to cut you off there, but listen to this. I think I figured it out. If Oregon wins, nightmare scenario ensues for Michigan.
oh,
Um, I don't think they can get in if Oregon wins their last two games. But they can still keep Ohio State. I think they would still be able to keep Ohio State out if they beat Ohio State
That's all
because Ohio
Michigan
State.
fans need to hear. That is all Michigan
Exactly.
fans need to hear.
So it comes down to common conference opponents. And
Ah, I see.
USC beat Michigan, correct? That's Michigan's
Yes.
conference loss.
And then if
So
Oregon beats USC, I get what you're saying there. I
so
get what you're
yeah,
saying.
so then it would be they would have they would be both, I guess, undefeated against everybody else they have in common except USC. So they
Hmm.
if Oregon win, but also basically whoever wins Oregon USC needs to lose again for Michigan to make it. But
Uh,
I do believe that because of the way because the first tiebreaker is head to head, I think Ohio State losing kicks Ohio State out
oh
because
yeah, I
Ohio
think
State
so.
and Oregon haven't played. Well, I don't. You know what?
Yeah, hey, yeah.
They don't
Why,
pay me
why
to
don't
run the
we
Big
settle
Ten.
this after USC and Oregon? Because once USC Oregon happens, this will make way more sense this weekend.
I will sit down and look at it maybe Sunday or Monday, and look at Ohio State's schedule because now when I'm thinking about it, um, again, I think going to the second tiebreaker would work, but I don't know. I guess it would depend on how they compare them to tied. I don't know.
That
I don't
that
know.
makes sense to me though with Oregon and Michigan. That one makes sense because if it's common opponent and Oregon beats USC but USC beat Michigan, then I think that
No,
makes sense. And
I think everything I said was right.
right,
I'm
yeah.
just curious if even though because like I my only thing is Michigan has the upper hand on Ohio State, but Oregon has the upper hand on Michigan. So my thinking is does Michigan count in this whole ordeal? Be, or
I get what you're saying because Ohio State would have the one loss, and if Michigan couldn't be ahead of Oregon, then we'd be looking at Oregon and Ohio State. I get what
because
you're
then
saying there. I get
technically
what
it's
you're.
Oregon, Ohio State, and they haven't played head to head. So then for them, if you're comparing them, it does go to the second layer. And
Yes,
then, oh, I guess then it would go to the third tiebreaker because they
I
don't have
think
common conference opponents.
Oregon. The
Uh,
only I'm trying off the top of my head, Penn State is one that I think you could keep in mind for
but
Ohio State and for
here's the
Oregon.
thing: you don't have to think about it because Oregon's loss is to Indiana, and Ohio State and Indiana haven't played this year.
Right.
So they're both undefeated against common conference opponents, whoever they may be. So then it goes into the I don't
Yeah.
I don't know. Now I want to pull it
If
back
we
up and
if
see
we
what the
keep on
third
sitting here, we're
is.
going to be messing with this all night. Let's let USC and
You're
Oregon
you're
handle
you're
it on
right.
Saturday, and then we'll figure it out for next week.
I'll sit down and look at it. And maybe I'll have to find a way to figure out how that works. But I would think if you can't make it past the first threat, I would think every team is considered at the first threshold, and if you can't make it past the first, then you'd be out. That's
Right.
how I
Right.
would think that it works.
I agree. I
I don't
agree.
think you get to skip number one just because at number two, the team that beats you at number one goes out. I think it's like
Right.
more of
Right.
like last man standing type deal.
Agreed.
Um, but enough of that because you're tired of hearing about it. And maybe to me and you, we're the only people who actually care. And everybody else listening to the show is saying, how long can these dudes
They're
talk
like, can
about
these two
hypothetical
shut
situations?
up about the Big Ten scenarios? Like, can they shut up over there?
That last 5 to 10 minutes just lost us, I don't know, 10 people watching the video.
Hey, we
Um,
picked up several subscribers in recent time. They're probably just like, okay, unsubscribe. I'm
Unsubscribe,
out of here.
unsubscribe. I didn't sign up for all this nerd hypothetical win-loss talk. I just want to play some football. That's all they care. Hopefully, maybe some people were interested by that because I enjoyed it. Look,
I
I'll tell
enjoyed
you
it.
right
I
now,
did.
don't tune in to the episode where we recap or where we talk next week's episode
Yeah,
will be
next
all
week.
about tiebreakers. So don't even watch next week's episode if you don't like tiebreakers. We did
Just
it
watch
last
the
year.
TikToks. If you don't want to listen to
No,
us, just watch the TikToks that come on the feed. That's your only way to tune in if you don't want to hear us talk about those.
because next week, that's all I will be talking about because that's the last week we get to talk about hypotheticals. We're going to square up every single possible situation. You're going to look, it all started what? 3 years ago with that when Washington
Oh
got
my
snubbed of
gosh.
the
I mean,
Big 12
how could I
championship.
forget that? How could I forget that?
No, was it? Yeah, it was Washington. They got snubbed by Utah, who ended up winning it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Who
Well,
who could who could forget that story of learning the tiebreakers of the Pac-12 making 0 sense?
yeah, and when overall record was the very last tiebreaker, which Washington had. Oh, I don't. They were one loss, and a two-loss team took their spot. Um, I'm over it. I've just learned to learn the rules of a tiebreak of the tiebreakers, and then curse you with that true knowledge.
Oh boy.
Um, because technically they did already know the tiebreakers coming into the
Yeah.
situation, so there's nothing that can be done. Nobody was cheated. But let's get into our game previews here for the next week. And look, I've just got a few game previews, few game picks. It's not going to be anything too strenuous this week. Just wanted to hit a couple games that I think might be important. In the ACC, Louisville, SMU. I don't think either of them has a chance at the title game anymore. If so, it's an absolute like drop in a hat
Yeah.
type deal. But this is still a game in the ACC that I think is pretty interesting that I'll probably tune in and watch at 11 a.m. I don't think there's anything too crazy going on at 11 a.m. On Saturday.
Nah, not
So,
not that I'm aware. I mean, Missouri and Oklahoma is the only other one at 11 a.m. that I'd probably keep my eye on over that one probably.
yeah, so I'll tune in and watch it. I think it's two fun football teams to watch. So I'll tune in and watch. But yeah, not too much at stake. But just kind of your thoughts again. My Louisville just dropping the ball week after week. They have a chance at the ACC championship, and they just lose and lose in back-to-back games. And now you're at a skid, and you got an SMU team that I don't think don't think they really have a shot at the conference title game. Actually, they might because I think two of
Yeah,
their
I was about to say
losses.
the SMU only has one conference loss, only one.
So yeah, they only have one conference, so they do have something to play for in this game. Take that
Yeah.
back. There is something to play for in this game. There is an opportunity. So again, just going to go back to Miami, right? There's another team that has a better chance to get in than they do right now in their
Mhm.
conference that they're ranked ahead of. But minus that, at home, chances to get to the ACC championship still surging through right now. So they have the opportunity. Can they beat the skidding Louisville, or does Louisville get back on track and play spoiler in this game?
Yeah, well, it's hard to say. You would think off the top of your head, you think, okay, yeah, they got it because Louisville's skidding off. Let's not forget how talented this Louisville offense is. This Louisville offense is extremely talented. I expect this to be a high scoring affair. I think these two offenses come ready to go. I don't even know what the over is at. I'd have to look it up. I'm curious. Um,
Take it.
52 and a half. Honestly, I take the over there. I think this will be a high scoring game. Both offenses come ready to play. But can SMU outlast them here? Because, like I said, now Louisville's got nothing to lose. Louisville's going to give you everything they got because they got nothing to lose here. That's dangerous for SMU. But if their offense comes ready to play, I think they can get this. Going to be a fun shootout, though, I think, at 11 a.m.
Yeah, I agree. I'm completely with you. It's going to be a fun game to watch. Um, then we've got Utah versus Kansas State. My big thing in this one is like you kind of expect maybe Utah to win this one, uh, but they could potentially still have a shot at. I think. Well, actually, I don't know because I don't know what the tiebreakers are. If head to head's the first tiebreaker in the Big 12, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But still a chance to get maybe make a statement in this game against K State. You're right there on the bubble right now in the college football playoff. I think that's the thing that's most important for them. But K State's a team that we thought might do something this year. They haven't, but they're still a talented team. Avery Johnson's still a heck of a quarterback. You can't come in and take this team lightly. I think you need to win this game if you're Utah because you're already outside looking in. You need to win every game here down the stretch. Got to win this game, I would think, if you're Utah, if you want any chance at the college football playoff. And again, for K State, it's a chance to play spoiler. I think that's, to me personally, as a competitor, that'd be just as important if I get a chance to maybe ruin. I'm not going, so you can't go either type of
Yeah.
mentality for me. I think that's going to be a big motivator. You see these teams that are right there on the outside. I'll be the team to make sure you don't go.
Yeah, pure and also Kansas State's 5-5. They're looking to get to a bowl game, so that's something else to play for. Look to see some postseason action. But pure and simple, these are two ground heavy teams. They both like to run the football a lot here. If this was a night game, I wouldn't even consider Utah losing this game. Like I wouldn't even a night game in Utah. Yeah, whatever. We're whatever. That's all I'm going to say for the game preview. But afternoon game here, like I said, Kansas State. You said opportunity to be a spoiler. They can run the football effectively. They can win this game, but it will be tough to do that against this Utah defense. So they run the ball. This gets interesting. But if Utah's defense comes ready to play, I think they can get this one done. Should be an interesting one though in the Big 12.
Now, this game, I think could have some potentially, again, depending on tiebreakers, could have some ground breaking changes here in the Big 12 and what happens in their title game. Cincinnati, 5-2 in conference, facing off against BYU, 6-1 in conference. Again, if the number one head tiebreaker is head to head, Cincinnati wins this game, you're into the Big 12 championship.
Yeah,
BYU wins this game, they are for sure in the conference championship if they win this game. As long as they only
absolutely.
play 8 conference games, which I believe they do.
Yeah, interesting one. BYU coming off its dare I say its best game of the season, at least in my opinion. I mean, they
I agree.
obliterated TCU on Saturday night. I thought that
I
would be a
agree.
thrilling, close game, and I mean,
Me
it
too.
became ugly very quickly there. So credit to BYU. Their defense is really sound, so that gives them a chance. Pure and simple, if both these teams, what it comes down to for both these defenses is stopping the run. Whichever defense can slow down the run the best and make these quarterbacks beat you with their arms, or at least try to beat you with their arms, that team's going to come out on top in this one. I think this will be a close game, a little bit low scoring here, but whichever team stops the run the best is going to be the one that wins this game and gets that inside track. And let's say like it is, if BYU wins this game, they're all but set for a rematch with Texas Tech if they win this game.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that this could be big. I think BYU looks really, really good right now. I think Cincinnati had a just absolutely back-breaking loss last week. Again, I wonder. Well, no, because
Looking
then
ahead,
if the
maybe
time,
you think like
yeah,
they're looking ahead to this BYU game.
I wonder, were they looking ahead? And I was going to say, had they not had that loss, maybe they could have had a little bit of help, but that's not true because they would still have been at one loss. And then if they lost this game for sure against BYU would have been who gets in, who goes home, but they
Right.
wouldn't have had a chance tiebreaker or anything. I was basically going to say that they should have used their loss here and not last week, but that would actually have been worse had they
Yeah.
won last week and this week because then the opportunity was right in their hands. Um, so I think this is a big week. I think Cincinnati could give them a fight, but like you said, with the way BYU played last week, I think this is probably, if I was picking this game, I would take BYU in this game. But
Same.
I'm excited to see what happens in this game because this is kind of a playoff game. BYU needs to win to just stay relevant. I think they have a chance to lose the Big 12 championship and still make the college football playoff, but they have to win this game. You
Yeah.
can't
They have
lose
to
this.
win out in the regular season if they want that chance.
Agreed. Um, but let's take a look at our game picks. In the first one, I think it could be an interesting game just because the OU offense hasn't recovered, but mostly just because this is two ranked teams going at it. Mizzou heading to Norman, taking on the Sooners. Sooners coming off their obviously the signature win this season. You get it done with the defense. Now you have a chance to build on that against Mizzou. Personally, I think Mizzou's starting to drag with that. All these road games at the end of the season. We kind of talked about that way earlier when you brought that up to us. Um, but this is a chance to, make some noise and make something happen and continue to shake this college football playoff up. For OU, even though you sit ahead of a team like Alabama and teams like BYU and Utah, you lose this game, you get your third loss. you are out. This is it. So you can't breathe easy now that you beat Alabama. Sure, you slayed the beast there, but you got to win out this regular season because you're not going to the SEC championship.
No, pure and simple. I talked about how is Oklahoma's strength versus Bama's weakness last week. This is literally the polar opposite. This is strength on strength. Best rushing defense in the country going against the Ahmad Hardy, who's looked dominant rushing the football for Missouri this year. So that's really what the matchup is. If Oklahoma can slow down Missouri's run game and make the true freshman in his third career start beat him with his arm, Oklahoma's going to blow him out. Oklahoma's going to blow him out. We're going to be sitting there and be like, no sweat, get out of here with a nice win and get ready for LSU in the last week of the regular season. But at the same time, though, the freshman's getting more comfortable. And if Missouri's able to run the football, this game gets very, very intriguing. But the factor of it is I'm going to trust in this Oklahoma defense. They went into Bama and literally won the game by themselves almost last week. If they just got to slow down Missouri's run game and they can win, I have confidence they can do it. So I'm going to pick the Sooners to win this game.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick OU too. I like the way they're going. I like the way they're functioning. Like you said, I think the defense can get the job done. I don't think Ahmad Hardy will necessarily have a bad game, but it'll be a bad game compared to the 300 rushing yard games he's had
Right.
this season. I think they'll slow him down off of that pace. Our next game, USC versus Oregon. Like we kind of talked about, one of these teams can further their case for a Big Ten championship appearance. The other, they're done with the college football playoff. They're done with the Big Ten championship. You're trying to prepare yourself for maybe a New Year's Six bowl after this game. Losers out. Winner has a chance to be in. I'm not going to say it's for sure guaranteed a spot in the college football playoff yet, but losers for sure out. This is a playoff game.
Yeah, this is, and this is easily the matchup I am looking forward to the most on Saturday between these two. Um, Pure and simple, talking about for both sides, for both defenses. USC, stop Oregon's run game. If you can stop the Oregon run game, Oregon's going to look to run the football. They'll pass with Dante Moore, but option one is run the football. And until you stop their run game, they're just going to keep on running at you. So if the USC run defense is there and ready to play, then this gets interesting, I think. Now, the other thing on the other side for Oregon, you remember the Indiana game, Austin. The wide receiving core in Indiana absolutely cooked that Oregon secondary in that matchup. And now you got two receivers who I don't want to say they're better overall. They're more athletically gifted probably than those two that they played against at Indiana and Mekhi Lemon and them. So weaknesses for both sides, but it's very rare for a team to go into Autzen Stadium and win. And you have to be a dang good football team to do that, like Indiana was. And I'll be think it'll be interesting if USC wins, but I just need to see it before I ultimately pick it. So I'm going to pick Oregon to win the game. Think it'll be close. Think it'll be a very interesting game. But until I see them see it happen with USC, I'm going to pick Oregon to win the game.
Yeah. Here I'm feeling maybe the biggest swing I've took of the season. I like USC in this game. I think Oregon's a good team, but we've kind of seen the youth and inexperience kind of level this team out. Like we said, it's a talented squad, but inexperience is going to be key. And I think the big thing you brought up, and kind of my big thing here, I think we've seen this team get beat. You know what it takes to beat them. This secondary struggled against Indiana, and I think we could very well see that again. And Lincoln Riley would love nothing more than to be able to just heave the ball all over the field.
Mm-hmm.
I
That's
don't
very
think it's
fair.
going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think we see USC go in and take down the Oregon Ducks, and
Mm.
we start to think about how scary this team looks. I think they've got momentum going, in my opinion, and they're going to be a tough team to stop right now, kind of with their own destiny in their hands.
Okay.
Our final game pick. I think to me, this is the most must-watch game of the year. Not game of the year, but game of the week. Sorry. Most must-watch game of the week. I don't think it's the most must-watch game of the year. I think that's going to be Auburn, Alabama here in a couple weeks. But Pitt, Georgia Tech.
Mm,
Pitt, even though they sit at 7-3, the one conference loss, they win out, they're in. Standing in their way, the Beast, Haynes King, and Georgia Tech. Thoughts on this one? I think this is going to be a treat to watch.
yeah, honestly it is. And let's say for Georgia Tech, last chance here. They basically last conference game for them because they play Georgia in non-conference to end the season there. So last chance for them to prove in ACC play and ultimately clinch that spot in the ACC championship. But I have my worries a bit for Georgia Tech in this game, Austin. The defense the last couple of weeks has me very, very worried for Georgia Tech from what I've seen. I mean, the close call against Boston College, NC State coming out and just flat out kicking their butt. I have my worries for the defense going into this matchup for Georgia Tech. Now, on the other side, for Pittsburgh, I have my worries because if this was such a good run defense, Jeremiah Love ran all over it. What the heck do we think Haynes King and this Georgia Tech run game is going to do to it? So there's worries on both sides for it, but kind of similar to my talk with Oregon, though. I just think Georgia Tech, knowing this is their last home game of the year, their last ACC game of the year, knowing what's on the line with the game at home here, I think Georgia Tech will win the game, very close one at home. But I would not be shocked if Pittsburgh goes in and beats them. Because, like I said, I have my doubts about this Georgia Tech defense the last couple of weeks. I'm going to pick Georgia Tech to get the win at home, though, and punch their ticket to the ACC championship.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you here. I like Georgia Tech. Like you said, they've kind of been concerning, but I'm going to kind of piggyback off you here again. Tape didn't lie last week.
Mm-hmm.
Pitt got beat, and they got beat at home bad by Notre Dame. Jeremiah Love had a field day. Now you think about it, this defense not only even I think I'd be worried even if it was just handoffs to Jamal Haynes over and over again, kind
Mm-hmm.
of like it was against Notre Dame. But again, you're talking about it. It's not just stopping one guy. You've got two running backs, a quarterback, and then Malachi Singleton, who they also like to get
Mm-hmm.
involved in some of that jet action.
Yeah.
You're going to have to watch all the trickery that this team has to offer against a run defense that didn't offer much resistance, granted, against the best running back in college football. I think they get picked apart. I think we see Georgia Tech look a little bit more like the Georgia Tech we saw earlier this year. And I think they go ahead and punch their ticket to the ACC championship game.
Okay.
But with all that being said, we got to get to that bet of the week. Honestly, I've stopped even thinking about the bet of the week after I say it. I just let it happen, and I let the fates choose it. I know I haven't had a good year. I'm not helping anybody out. If you put the mortgage on it, I'm sorry. I'm not responsible. I didn't place that bet, and you should have watched the entire season. I'm not trustworthy. I'm going to come out here and I'm going to have something crazy to say. And it's up to you whether you want to go with it or not, but I won't be held responsible. I'm tired of living with the guilt of just making awful picks every week. But with all that being said, where are you leaning here?
So there was a couple I was leaning with here. I have already bet on Kent State tonight, plus 7.5. So oh, they're already down 14 nothing. Well, that's not a good sign. But in the end, there was a couple I thought that were intriguing that I did like. But then I found this one, Austin, and I can't believe I'm doing it because I am going against my morals with this, but I'm doing it anyway. I don't care if it's Death Valley at night. Western Kentucky going to LSU on Saturday. Maverick McIver, the quarterback for Western Kentucky, is a problem. This Western Kentucky offense is a problem. Give me Western Kentucky plus 21.5 going into Baton Rouge on Saturday night. I think this Western Kentucky offense gives them a very, very good chance against this LSU team. And I like Western Kentucky. They may not win the game, but I like them to cover the 21.5 point spread.
I like it. I like what you're saying, and I like hearing you talk about spreads because that's exactly where I'm leaning. Look, I'm going to go to a game we talked about earlier. I like Kansas State plus 17.5 against Utah. I don't think they win.
Ooh.
I think they cover 17.5. Like you said, there's a lot to play for in this game. Chance to play a little bit of spoiler. Chance to go ahead and make yourself bowl eligible. A lot on the line for Kansas State. Very talented team. I think they make it close, and we have a pretty exciting game there at 3 o'clock.
Absolutely. I like that pick. I like it. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Got two underdogs and big spreads. Hopefully, this is the week it's a 2-0 for the Bull Take podcast. One can hope. One can hope.
Yeah, we can only hope. But that's doing it here for us at the Bold Take Podcast. We've had a great week. We've had a longer episode than expected, but we hope you enjoy. That's Austin Waiter. I'm Austin Hill, and we want to thank you for listening.